Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC alongside Craig Burley, Ale Moreno. I'm Sebastian Salazar. Great to have you with us on what was a fantastic day of Champions League football. We will be talking Inter and Benfica, as well as looking ahead to Wednesday's Champions League quarterfinals. But we've got to start with Bayern Munich and Manchester City. What a performance from Manchester City. Rodri with a golazo in the 27th minute. It was 1-0 at the half. Bernardo Silva adding a second in the 70th. 6 minutes after that, Erling Haaland converts. And that is your final score as Manchester City roll Bayern Munich. For more on this one, let's welcome into the show Aage Fjortoft and Nedum, Onuoha, who was actually at the game. So, Nedum, why don't we start with you? Perfect day for your City boys, and you got to see it live.
Yeah, it certainly ended up being that way. It wasn't really the result that, in terms of the 3 goals, that a lot of people expected. But by the end of the game, you're thinking, well, it could have been more. I think seeing Bayern Munich on the back foot for that period in the second half was so strange to see, especially given how well they started from, say, the start of the second half to maybe the 55th minute. But it's an incredible result for Man City, but they're level-headed enough to know that this is only halfway through the tie. But honestly, one of the best atmospheres I think that stadium's ever seen, and one of the biggest results that people can probably remember. If they can see this through, then, you know, potentially in the next round, should they get there, this is a moment that they will remember. But a spectacular day, and I think it's going to be a talking point for a lot of people who take care of an interest in Europe around, an interest in football around Europe, should I say.
What's the bigger storyline here, bad Bayern or good City?
I think good City. I mean, Jan Sommer had a difficult day with his feet at times. Not as difficult as a Upamecano.
Yeah.
But he was brilliant in terms of his shot saving. Otherwise, as Nedum said, it would have been, I don't know, 5, maybe 6. I don't remember Ederson having to make... He made a couple of saves from outside the box from Sané from long distance, but I don't remember too much from close in. He had to come off his line a few times and sweep up. But as Nedum said, beginning that second half, Bayern had the bit between their teeth. They looked up for it and a bit of pressure on Man City. And then Man City figured it out and then just took control. And then Upamecano makes mistakes. I thought they looked better when Alvarez came on, actually. When De Bruyne went off and Alvarez came on, they went up a gear. And, yeah, it was vintage Man City, that second half, particularly the last half an hour, when they just completely controlled the tempo of the game and looked like they were going to open Bayern Munich up on almost every attack.
Vintage Manchester City, a lot of that had to do with Erling Haaland. Jan, a goal, an assist. He finally beats Bayern Munich. Perfect day for him as well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he has scored a lot against them before. I think it was a 6th goal against Bayern Munich. But yes, taking nothing away from Manchester City, that was a fantastic performance for Erling as well. The cross he made for Silva, he could have shot there himself. Great cross for him. And then, of course, the 3-0 that he made. But if I may just add to Bayern Munich, Erling Haaland will laugh tonight because he has seen Bayern Munich so much better. Can you imagine? You fire Nagelsmann to win the treble, and then Erling Haaland is bullying them, and they're out of 2 competitions. They're out of the Cup and they're out of the Champions League, Nedum, I got to tell you. And if you see the records now from Erling Braut Haaland, it's just sensational. His season, and you're talking about vintage, Craig, maybe we should stop this thing saying that Manchester City is getting weaker with Erling Braut Haaland. That is the dumbest and most stupid quote that I know in football nowadays.
Ale, you picked Manchester City.
Yeah.
And you did so almost kind of regretfully because you watched so much Bundesliga and Bayern Munich. You didn't expect it to go down like this, though.
No, and may I just say that in the first half, it was fairly even. It was a little bit of back and forth. It was Manchester City, you have 5 minutes. Bayern Munich, you have 5 minutes. They were exchanging the possession of the ball. They were exchanging the opportunities in the attack. There were moments in which Bayern Munich caused some issues for Manchester City. Let's not forget the sliding challenge by Ruben Diaz on the shot that Jamal Musiala takes, which had been a really good play down the left-hand side from Leroy Sané. Comes back to Musiala. Musiala now has a free shot on goal. Ederson, he's already leaning. He's not coming back to that near post. Ruben Diaz doesn't make that challenge. It's 1-0 Bayern Munich. Perhaps we have a different conversation. What was really surprising from Bayern Munich's perspective is how quickly and how steep the drop-off was once they gave up that second goal. And that amount of insecurity that we saw from Dayo Upamecano, who you may have thought coming into the match, hey, fresh, didn't play on the weekend because he was suspended against Freiburg. He's going to be one of the important players coming back into the starting lineup. He's going to help Bayern Munich defensively. There was fear. There was fear from Upamecano, and I will say that after the second goal, Bayern Munich looked fearful as a whole.
Yeah.
And Manchester City were able to not only feel this, smell this, but say, you know what? We can get after Bayern Munich. Now they've renounced to the attack. Now they're just reacting to whatever we're doing. It was all Manchester City all the time post that second goal. And again, I'll go back to something that I just mentioned. It was surprising to see a team of the quality, the experience, and the know-how of Bayern Munich to be as vulnerable and fearful as they were after the second goal.
This was a very attacking lineup with those 4 players. Pace, invention, movement, but it lacked a focal point.
Yeah.
No choupo-moting. And go back to Jan's point, we talk about Erling Haaland, clearly. And there was one or two who thought there was the demise of the striker when Pep Guardiola had success to an extent without one last year, playing the false 9. But he went out and he brought in Erling Haaland. Chelsea are desperate for a striker. Bayern Munich, obviously, without Lewandowski are not the same, but Choupo-Moting has done a good job. Arsenal went and got themselves a striker. Liverpool are missing one. And I dare say when Karim Benzema finishes at Real Madrid, they won't try and play a false 9. They'll go and buy a striker. And it's so important to have that focal point, which Man City had, and Bayern Munich didn't. And it's not the only difference, but it was a big part of the play today, that they had lots of movement, Bayern Munich up front, particularly from in to out, from wide positions to diagonal runs, but they didn't have a focal point to work off. And that's what City had.
And to your point, Craig, this is a conversation that has been going on around Bayern Munich and in Bundesliga the whole season. We go back to the early part of the season in Bundesliga in which those that said, hey, you know what? Bayern Munich, they've moved on from Robert Lewandowski. They're not going to miss him. And I said back then, and I think we have discussed it in this show, those are 40 goals walking out the door. 40 goals walking out the door. But people were saying, well, look at the flexibility that now Julian Nagelsmann and Bayern Munich has, or in this case, Thomas Tuchel and Bayern Munich have. Look at all the players that can, yes, they can get on the ball on the outside. They can get on the ball underneath. They can get on the ball on the left. They can get on the ball on the right. But who gets on the ball inside the 18-yard box? When that final touch has to happen, when we saw today a couple of moments in which Bayern Munich perhaps were dominating the play and they may be creating half chances here and there, who's getting on that chance at the end? Nobody is. That is the focal point that Craig is alluding to, and I think it's something that Bayern Munich have been missing throughout the course of the season.
Jan, I want to get your thoughts on Bayern Munich, but just real quick, let me read you a quote that we just got from Thomas Tuchel, and then you can respond to that and give us your thoughts on Bayern Munich. I think our players were lacking a bit in confidence and form. Of course, the result is bitter for us. I fell in love with my team a little today, the way they performed. Even if it sounds strange, that was a lot of fun. I don't agree with the result at all. We were punished in phases in which we were the better team. We were simply brutally punished today. I thought our performance was good until 2-0. I don't want to talk down the result. I saw a very good performance until the 70th minute. Jan, your thoughts on Bayern Munich, and then that quote from Tuchel. How's that going to play in Germany?
Won't play well. I think that people will say that he lack of love lately, Thomas Tuchel, if that is his love life, I must say. Because, yes, I'm with Al that they had a chance with Musiala, maybe a more experienced players. I know that's easy to say that would have done that. But I think that performance was terrible time-wise, especially in second half. It's so seldom to see a big team like Bayern Munich go down as they did in the second half. Also, just to support Al's point of the strikers, Nagelsmann said, we'll be better without a striker. He don't say we will be more flexible. I will make them better, he said. Then they got Mané, then they got Cancelo, then they got half the Ajax team. They were all sitting on the bench today, and they have already played that card of the coach. The coach is already fired. That was Julian Nagelsmann. Tuchel came in to win the treble. 2 titles gone now. And what's the next card? That is to have to look at the management, because you can't do things like you're doing at Bayern now. If you bring in all these players, nobody's playing the most important game. And the Freiburg, they won 1-0 at Freiburg, boys. We saw that game. That should be the draw. They're not even sure to win the Bundesliga this season. So Bayern got to have a look at themselves, and Thomas Tuchel will find a way. I think that is a typical coach. We've seen these coaches, when they are so annoyed, when they're so angry, what do? They don't want to be predictable, so they come out with a love side. But I think the love must be over now for the Bayern fans, because they're out of the Champions League.
What do you make of what he said, Craig?
Well, I think he may have watched a slightly different game. I mean, I thought they were pretty okay in the first half. But after, 50 minutes, it was one-way traffic. I mean, there was the odd foray forward over the top. I thought John Stones was magnificent. I think he was sponsors man of the match. I might be wrong. To single out one player would be wrong. We were watching the game, we talked about any surprises. I suppose you could have thought Mahrez for Silva, but that was a big decision that he got right.
Is that actually what Pep got right, that he didn't surprise us with anything? Because that's been the criticism
they did the
in
exact
the
same
past.
as they've been doing in the league. Was John Stones stepped into midfield, and it was three at the back when they had possession, and if Stones couldn't get out to right back to defend, when they were defending, then Akanji went out there and Stones filtered in. So they didn't do a great deal different. They just used the ball better than Bayern. Bayern tried to play out from the back in the same manner in which City tried to play out from the back. Man City just did it better, with more composure. And, I don't want to single him out, but, he wasn't the only one. But why, when somebody's having such a bad time, Upamecano, do you keep giving him the ball?
Yeah.
And they kept feeding him the
good
ball,
point.
and his confidence was draining. I mean, he could have taken him off. I mean, he didn't take him off, did he?
No, he did not.
He could have taken him off and it was that bad. It was that bad. You almost felt sorry for him. So don't continue to ram it down the lad's throat when City are going to press him and going to feed on that. So City were just better. I mean, they used the ball so well from inside their own box. Rodri was always available. Gundogan was always available. Silva was always available. And I said it at the top of the show, when Alvarez came on, he was mesmeric. I mean, it's arguable to say that when they come on, he did more than Kevin De Bruyne did in the hour or so that he was on. That's how good the end of the game was for Julian Alvarez.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Let's just
pull back the curtain.
Yeah, give the people a behind-the-scenes look as we're watching the game together, as we usually do. Whenever the ball was being played out to Upamecano, the noises coming from our room were like, uh-oh. This is from 1,000 miles away. He's feeling it. In fact, the one time that Craig was yelling at Haaland was because Haaland, at one point, as Jan Sommer had the ball, was actually pressuring Jan Sommer instead of letting him play the ball to Upamecano and then step to Upamecano. Again, if we're feeling it, and we're sensing it, and we're seeing it, what do you think he's feeling? What do you think he's sensing? And the ball's coming to him, and he no longer knows what his next decision is going to be because he's unsure what he's doing. So to that point, don't play him.
Yeah.
Take him off the field. Whatever you need to do. You have to limit the mistakes, and you have to limit the damage. It becomes a damage control situation because you don't want this getting away from you when you still have 90 minutes to come at home. Still, what you saw from Bayern Munich was compounded mistake after mistake and mistake. And 3-0, I just don't think it's realistic to think you can come back.
What if Bayern got an early goal, boys?
Well, what if? What if?
You're feeling it?
I wouldn't say I'm feeling it.
Oh, okay.
But
Are you calling it?
Well, all I'm saying is City were, what was it? They were 2-0 up in the Bernabeu in the 89th minute. And what happened?
Yeah.
They got put out. So I
That
know,
was Real
Jan,
Madrid.
has called this over. All I'm saying is, I mean, it's unlikely, but City were, this is factual, by the way, it's not an opinion. They were 2-0 up in the 89th minute and got knocked out.
They got Benzema. They got Benzema, and Bayern got 0-0. That is a big difference.
Before we move on to what's next, we do have a defender on our panel here. Nedum, I know you have your City ways, but should Tuchel have pulled Upamecano?
You'd like to think that like a full French international would not start off having a bad game and continue having a bad game, but I don't know. It probably would have done a lot. If Tuchel's talking about confidence already, what happens to Upamecano when he gets dragged off in a game that's that big? But he has such a bad time, and as the guys were saying, I was the same here. I was watching him get the ball, and I was thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen next? They stole the ball away from him so many times, and you don't expect that from somebody of that sort of quality. But City definitely capitalised. And to quickly go back on what Tuchel said, he said he fell in love with his team for 70 minutes. Well, it's a 90-minute game of football. So should he not be concerned by that last 20? Because they were so bad that it really could have gone out of hand. Like 3-0, like it could have potentially been more. Some ended up making some great saves. But yeah, I felt for Upamecano a little bit. But of all the games I've seen of him, he's had some good ones. But the one I remember as well was in the World Cup against England. And he had a bad day that day against Harry Kane as well. And unfortunately, he's carried that into this big game here. But you know, at the end of the day, he's still a very good player, I think.
The problem is Upamecano. His style has always been like this. When he was at RB Leipzig, before he came to Bayern, he always had that mistake in him. But it's not very often you can see on a player that you are losing confidence when you're watching that. I mean, you can go into a game where we have Upamecano is an international. He's played for Bayern Munich. He's not a bad player, but you can see today that he's losing confidence. And I think it is an interesting discussion. Can you take him off? The embarrassing would have been then maybe more. But, I mean, what can be more embarrassing than his last 20 minutes?
We're going to have to take you off, Jan, if you don't sort your internet on. We'll put
That's
some
right.
up for you. Freezing a bit there. Jan's turned his back on German football.
There it is.
Turned his back, Jan.
Steady.
Bayern, they said they're out.
No.
Nedum, you were there live. Obviously, I think all three goals were pretty in their own way. But what was your angle on the Rodrigo strike, and what was the reaction there? Because as the guys have mentioned, it did come against the run of play.
Yeah, it certainly did. I think that goal came shortly after Ruben Diaz blocked that shot from Musiala. And at the time, Bernardo Silva was just in the corner. He was like 3v1 against him. So the fact that they ended up scoring a goal there, it was against run of play, but that's the sort of ebb and flow that the game was in that time. But he definitely set the place alight, and he got those players believing. And to then go in at half-time a goal up, you know, they're a confident bunch. But, you know, it's such an interesting game because, as we said, as soon as the second half started, Bayern were in the ascendancy again. They had a good 10 minutes and Ederson made a couple of saves. There was one particularly good one with his left arm. But, you know, it's those little moments that make a big deal. I think there was a point where Gundogan missed a chance, or Sommer saved a shot actually on the volley when he was on the floor. So there were so many moments, but that was a fantastic goal to sort of set the occasion going. And once that went in, the belief was great amongst the players, amongst the fans. And, you know, it was a fantastic place to be if you were of a City persuasion for sure.
We talk about the importance of a striker and Erling Haaland. And in this particular play by Rodri, while we can focus on the goals that he scored or the assists, the presence of a threat as a striker that Erling Haaland has for Manchester City pushes Bayern Munich back to the point to where Rodri, when he cuts to the inside, Kimmich is more concerned about the potential pass that is going to go towards Erling Haaland than actually stepping into the path of Rodri. Nobody thinks he's about to hit this. Nobody truly believes, and I don't even think that Rodri truly believes that he's about to hit this, but he goes, I think I've run out of options here, so I might as well take it myself, and what a finish it was and how important it was in the moment. But I just wanted to highlight that the presence of a true threat inside the 18-yard box does more for your team than just the scoring of a goal or providing an assist. It really changes the way that you play defensively, and it affects how willing you are to stop or step into the path of a player or drop off because you're concerned about what the big guy is going to do.
He had a hell of a game, Rodri, again, didn't he? Taking the goal out of it, it was just his general all-round performance was superb. But something we've mentioned, I've talked about in the show before, and I don't make any apologies for repeating myself, it's what we do, is generally all City's big players are getting back to back to their best at the key parts of the season. Now, before and after the World Cup, there was 2 or 3, maybe more of them. Little heavy leg, De Bruyne was out the side. There was a couple of games, Haaland was quiet, not all his own fault, but maybe through the service. The back line had changed a little bit. You know, the full-backs, young Rico Lewis was in, and there was a few changes. And now all these big players, Rodri, Gundogan, De Bruyne, Haaland, Ruben Diaz, Akanji, John Stones, the list goes on. They're all back to top form at the business end of the season. And that's pretty ominous for everybody else if they can keep that going. But it's a great place for Guardiola to be in because his big runners and riders are all in the traps, ready to go. And it's going to be a slog to the end of the season. Champions League, FA Cup, trying to hunt Arsenal down. But they've got a big squad, and boy, they're playing well.
Jan, as far as the second leg is concerned, you really giving Bayern no shot?
What is happening here in Germany? I mean, in Germany at the moment, they've already started a fight. Who's to blame? and it's gonna be a blame game for the next week. I do think that Bayern will come back. They will have a much better game in the Allianz, and was Craig saying maybe an early goal could help them. But if you have a look at the team, I mean, where yes, there was an offensive team. There was 4 or 5 players there. But who should they play on? Big decision before the game for Thomas Tuchel was not to bring Müller. Everybody thought that Müller would be there. He had a fantastic classic, scored 2 goals. It's always a contagious way of playing. But I can't see them coming back because, first of all, can you see what's the chance that Bayern will score 3, then that Manchester City won't score a goal? I mean, just try to make the bet on that one. So there is now. I love both English and German football, but no, auf Wiedersehen, Bayern Munich, auf Wiedersehen.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.